At a $300 million art auction in Chicago, silence shattered with one fierce bark. Max, a trained German shepherd, wasn't barking at people. He was warning them. The lost Leonardo painting everyone admired was poisoned. Billionaires laughed. Cameras kept rolling. But Max smelled the truth, a deadly trap hidden behind beauty. When the billionaire bidder collapsed, the room finally realized the dog wasn't causing chaos. He was saving a life. This is the story of a loyal canine who exposed a murder disguised as art. Where are you watching from today? Comment below and subscribe for more miracles and hero dog. Summer heat draped itself over Chicago like a heavy velvet curtain. Inside the Fairmont auction hall, the chilled air smelled of polished mahogany, money, and ambition. Wealthy patrons fanned themselves lazily, diamonds flickering beneath golden lights, while outside cicadas buzzed in relentless chorus. Michael Harris sat in the front row, adjusting the cuff of his tailored navy jacket. At 58, his build remained athletic despite years spent in boardrooms. Thin silver hair swept neatly back revealed a widow's peak that once charmed magazine covers. Hard gray eyes, framed by deep lines, hinted at a man who had lost more than he cared to admit. His late wife, Rebecca, had been the true lover of art. He merely followed where her joy led. Since cancer took her 2 years ago, his world had shrunk into silence, except for moments like this. Moments where he believed beauty might stitch the torn places inside him. Beside him sat Ethan Cole, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his 30s with sandy brown hair cropped short. His strong jaw always looked a second away from clenching, a habit born from deployments overseas that never truly ended. A faint scar ran along his cheek like a pale reminder of desert nights and firefights. Assigned as Michael's personal security detail after a kidnapping threat last year, Ethan rarely relaxed. He scanned exits, measured distances, and trusted instinct more than any guarantee printed on glossy invitations. At Ethan's feet lay Max, a 3-year-old German shepherd with dense black and tan fur and intelligent amber eyes that missed nothing. Muscles rippled beneath his coat as he breathed, alert even when still. Max had been trained as a protection dog, yet he possessed a gentle loyalty, especially toward Michael, who always seemed fragile in a way humans tried to hide but animals never ignored. In the back, the cleaning staff moved silently along the wall. Karen Miller, a woman in her late 30s with wheat blonde hair tied into a practical bun, held a tray of auction catalogs against her slate gray uniform. Her skin, pale and lightly freckled, contrasted with the weariness in her soft blue eyes. Once a librarian, she had lost her job when the local branch shut down due to budget cuts. Since then, she worked anywhere that allowed her to care for her son. Logan Miller stood close to her side, gripping a small spiral notebook filled with sketches and notes about art he had studied online. At 11, he was slender, awkward-limbed, with short golden hair that always seemed in need of combing. His curiosity shone brighter than fear, though he often tried to make himself smaller in rooms filled with important people. Every time Karen looked at him, pride flickered past exhaustion. Their lives were stitched together by struggle. Yet moments like this, surrounded by masterpieces he only knew from library books, felt like standing at the edge of a dream. The auctioneer, a tall man with silver spectacles and polished manners, stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for today's premiere sale," he announced smoothly. Behind him, a large velvet cloth fluttered over an easel like a secret waiting to exhale. Our final piece, an extraordinary rediscovery, The Silent Summer Lady, believed to be a lost work of Leonardo. A ripple spread through the audience. Cameras lifted. Money leaned forward in its chair. Michael felt his heartbeat tighten, not from greed, but longing. Rebecca had once spoken of Leonardo the way others spoke of saints. Owning a piece she loved might fill the cavern she left behind, or so he tried to believe. The cloth was whisked away. Gasps followed. The woman in the painting glowed with soft shadow and delicate poise. Her dress draped in rich blue folds, too rich, some might say, and her eyes held a shy, perfect smile. Too perfect. Logan squinted, his young brow furrowing. Something about the shadows felt unnatural, like copied light rather than captured soul. He opened his notebook, flipping through pages of art notes, searching for a memory he couldn't yet name. Max's nose twitched. The dog lifted his head slowly, ears rising, attention narrowed to the painting. Ethan noticed the shift, but assumed Max sensed the crowd's tension. Still, a thread of suspicion tugged inside him. The auctioneer raised his gavel. "We begin the bidding at $100 million. Bidders signaled without flinching, numbers climbing in absurd leaps. Karen swallowed hard as she watched a fortune change hands with a flick of fingers. That money could rebuild libraries, feed families, keep children safe. Logan didn't think of money. He stared only at the painting, and at Max, who was now standing, tail stiff, nostrils flaring harder. The German shepherd stepped forward, nails tapping against marble. A low rumble started in his chest. Ethan leaned down. "Easy, buddy. It's just a painting." But Max didn't believe that. His eyes sharpened, nose pointed like an arrow aimed at the canvas. He inhaled again, quick, wary, then barked once, sharp. Heads turned, murmurs rolled like distant thunder. "Apologies," Ethan muttered, tugging lightly on the leash. Max ignored him and barked again, more urgently. Michael blinked. The world felt hotter, heavier. A headache pricked the edges of his skull, and his chest fluttered strangely. The lights above the painting shimmered as if underwater. Grief he could bear. But this sudden dizziness, why now? Logan's heart raced. He watched Max's fixed posture, every muscle tensed with warning, and he remembered something his mother always said. Animals speak with their senses first. Listen when they worry. His eyes darted to the vents positioned just behind the easel. Cold air spilled directly outward, toward the front rows. He gulped. Something unseen moved there, riding the air. Something dangerous. Ethan noticed Michael's breathing, slowing. Max growled, stepping protectively in front of the billionaire. Ethan's instincts surged to full alarm. The auctioneer's voice echoed distantly. $250 million. Do I hear 260? But for Ethan, time narrowed into a single point. Max staring at the painting, as if staring death itself in the face. And Michael collapsing would be just one bid away. Max barked again, sharp, commanding, furious. The German shepherd's growl vibrated through the room like a warning siren disguised in fur and instinct. Ethan tightened his grip on the leash, but his own pulse had begun to mirror the urgency in the dog's stance. Michael Harris blinked hard as dizziness swirled through his head like heat radiating from asphalt. He tried to sit straighter, pretend nothing was wrong, but his heartbeat felt sluggish, dragged underwater by unseen hands. The auctioneer continued his ritual chant of escalating millions, unaware that danger stalked quietly through the air vents behind him. The wealthy guests rolled their eyes at the barking dog, annoyed that an animal was ruining their spectacle of wealth. A woman in a pearl-drenched dress muttered, "Some people cannot control their pets," flicking her fan dramatically. Logan Miller heard the comment, but did not care. His gaze darted between Max and the silent vents pushing cold air directly toward Michael. Something invisible and dangerous was being aimed, not at the entire audience, just the front row. "Mom," he whispered, tugging at Karen's sleeve. "Max is smelling something. Something bad from that painting." Karen glanced at her son, brow creasing with concern. She trusted Logan's instincts. He had always been different from other kids, noticing details that others missed. But in this room full of power and security— "Sweetheart, stay close," she murmured, wrapping one protective arm around him. And then, right there, Michael's vision blurred completely for a moment. His chest tightened as if a heavy hand pressed down. "Breathe," he told himself, but each breath felt thick, like inhaling fog instead of air. Ethan, seeing Michael sway, moved closer to support him, voice low but urgent. "Sir, are you okay?" Michael managed only a faint nod, fingers gripping the armrest. "I'll be fine. Just heat." But Ethan knew heat exhaustion from true distress, and this wasn't heat. Max suddenly snapped his head toward the side entrance. A man in a charcoal suit stood half hidden behind the curtains, hands clasped behind his back too stiffly, eyes too focused on Michael rather than the painting. He was tall, around 40, with neatly parted chestnut hair and a neatly trimmed beard outlining a long, angular face. His blue-gray eyes had none of the warmth crowds usually brought, just cold calculation. His suit, though immaculate, seemed designed more for concealment than fashion, fabric that draped rather than shined. He didn't flinch at Max's aggression. Instead, his lips curled into the slightest smirk, quickly wiped away when he noticed Ethan looking. Ethan narrowed his gaze. Soldiers recognized the predatory calm of danger long before civilians did. Michael slumped slightly forward. Ethan didn't hesitate anymore. "We're leaving," he muttered, helping him up. The auctioneer, oblivious, announced, "We have a bid of $260 million. Do I hear?" He was cut off by Max lunging, barking toward the air swirling behind the painting. Gasps exploded through the hall. Security guards in dark suits rushed forward. One of them, a stout man with a reddish face and too tight uniform, yelled, "Remove that animal now!" Karen instinctively stepped in front of Logan. Ethan positioned himself between Michael and anyone approaching too quickly, one arm steady around the billionaire's back. Max's ears flattened as he bared his teeth, not at the guards, but directly at the painting, at the vents behind it, and at the man lurking by the curtains who calmly began to walk away. "Logan," Karen said shakily, "we're going too." Logan hesitated, torn between fear and fascination with the truth only he and Max could sense. "That painting," he whispered. "It's wrong, and something in the air." His sentence broke as Michael's knees buckled. Ethan caught him fully this time. "Call paramedics," he barked. Two uniformed EMTs who were on standby for high-profile events, standard for ultra-wealthy gatherings, pushed through the crowd. One was a woman in her 40s named Dr. Emily Carter, short brunette hair pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail. Her sharp hazel eyes embodied professionalism, sharpened by years of emergency medicine. She dropped to her knees beside Michael. "Pulse is weak," she said. "Breathing shallow. This isn't heat stroke. There's a substance in the air." The other EMT, a young man named Ryan Blake, freckled and earnest, prepared oxygen immediately. "Sir, stay with us," Emily urged, her voice steady yet clearly alarmed. "What was he exposed to?" Ethan shook his head. "Nothing. We were sitting quietly. Then the dog alerted." Emily looked up at Max, surprise dawning. Trained service animals rarely misjudge threats. "Evacuate the front rows," she commanded. "Now!" But the auction staff hesitated, confused, afraid of disrupting the multi-million-dollar sale. "Do it!" Ethan snapped, voice trained to be obeyed. Chairs scraped, designer heels clicked in chaotic rhythm as billionaires fled the danger they couldn't see. The charcoal-suited man slipped deeper behind the curtain, disappearing. Ethan tried to memorize his face, carving every detail into his mind. Logan coughed. A sharp sting pricked his throat. Karen covered his nose with her sleeve. The air was turning. "Ethan," Michael whispered faintly, eyes half-lidded. "Rebecca loved art." Emotion cracked the last word like fragile porcelain. "I know, sir. Stay awake for her." Emily covered Michael's face with a mask. Oxygen hissed. Max pressed close, whining, protective. Then something caught Ethan's eye. A faint shimmer near the vents, like heat mirage but cold air pouring out. "Gas," he breathed. "Chemical gas." Emily stiffened. "We need hazmat and law enforcement." Lights felt hotter. Whispers sharpened into panicked accusations. Logan stared at the painting, now appearing grotesque. The beautiful lady's smile twisted by the knowledge that poison pulsed unseen behind her frame. Max growled again, the only voice insisting that truth was already too close. Ethan lifted Michael into his arms. "We're leaving," he said again. But this time, the air answered with a darker promise. The auction hall, once filled with glamour, had transformed into a silent trap, and an invisible killer drifted freely, waiting for the next breath. Blue and red lights splashed across the marble walls as Chicago PD officers rushed into the auction hall. What had moments ago been a cathedral of wealth and elegance now resembled a crime scene disguised in evening gowns and tailored suits. Ethan Cole supported Michael's weight with one arm, urging him toward the exit, while Max marched beside them, fur raised like a banner of defiance. Logan and Karen stayed close, Logan clutching his notebook to his chest like a fragile shield. Dr. Emily Carter signaled the paramedics to get Michael on a stretcher. "Pulse stabilizing, keep oxygen going," she ordered, wiping sweat from her brow. Even beneath stress, her movements were precise, each action guided by a lifetime of emergencies that always demanded calm. A group of detectives entered, led by Detective Mark Turner, a man in his mid-40s with a square jaw shadowed by stubble that hinted he rarely slept a full night. His dark blonde hair was cut short with streaks of early gray, and his deep-set hazel eyes scanned rooms with the certainty of someone who had seen cruelty wearing the mask of sophistication many times before. He wore a plain charcoal suit, wrinkled around the elbows, and a badge clipped to his belt. Scars invisible to the eye clung to him. Years of homicide work and a recent divorce after the job swallowed too much of his soul. "Everyone needs to stay calm and cooperate," Turner called out firmly, voice rough like gravel over steel. He strode toward Ethan and Michael. "What happened here?" Ethan kept his voice low. "A chemical agent." Michael was targeted. Turner's gaze sharpened. "Targeted? By who?" Ethan glanced toward the curtain where the unknown man had vanished. "Someone who walked out before the gas fully hit. Tall, late 30s or 40s, sharp beard, cold eyes, wearing a charcoal suit. Turner lifted a brow. Sharp beard and cold eyes describes half this room. He gestured to two officers. Check cameras, every exit. I want a visual on that man. Logan stepped forward, surprising even himself. Max smelled the danger first. The vents behind the painting were pushing something into the air. And the painting, it wasn't right. Turner stared at him, surprised to hear information, not hysteria, from a child. Not right? How so? Logan swallowed, his voice trembling but determined. The pigment was wrong. The shadows were too flat. It looked like a copy, not art, a trap. Turner studied the boy, then the dog still stiff and alert. He didn't understand pigments, but he understood instincts, especially those belonging to trained animals. We'll get experts to test it. He nodded at an officer. Secure the painting, carefully. Karen placed both hands on Logan's shoulders, pride and protective fear mixing in her trembling fingers. Meanwhile, Michael's stretcher was being wheeled out. He turned his head weakly toward Ethan. Don't let them bury this, he whispered. His voice cracked not only from the gas, but from the familiar agony of being powerless. I won't, Ethan promised. Dr. Carter hurried alongside the stretcher as they exited into the heated summer night. Max whined, ears twisting, wanting to follow, but choosing to stay with Ethan. A forensic technician, Julia Price, a petite woman in her late 20s with tightly curled black hair and careful brown eyes, arrived carrying sealed cases. She was newer to the force, brilliant in chemistry, and driven by the need to prove her worth in a field dominated by louder men. She knelt near the easel. This frame is heavier than a simple painting. There's a device behind it. Turner folded his arms. Get it open, and get me air readings. Julia slipped on gloves and pulled a small scanner from her bag. As it beeped and flashed, her brow arched. Sedative gas, potent enough to drop a grown man in seconds with direct exposure. She tapped a section behind the frame. Metallic clink. Dispersal unit. Remote activation. Turner's jaw tightened. Planned. Targeted. Yes, Julia replied shakily. This wasn't an accident. Logan peeked from behind Karen. They wanted Mr. Harris to collapse, and everyone would think it was just his grief or stress. Ethan nodded. A perfect silent kill. Nothing suspicious. Turner looked between the boy and the dog. Smart kid. Smarter dog. A panicked voice suddenly pierced the air. Where's Victor Hale? Turner turned sharply. A slick-haired auction manager, a nervous man in an overpriced suit, wrung his hands together. The curator. The one who brought the painting. I can't find him. He slipped away during the chaos. Ethan's teeth clenched. That's him. The man Max growled at. Turner's eyes darkened. Issue a citywide alert. He's our lead suspect. Officers scrambled. The auction hall emptied except for investigators, who now treated the painting skill like a bomb with its clock still ticking. Logan stepped forward again, drawn to the easel. He felt the overwhelming weight of fear and brilliance all at once. Can I see the signature? Turner blinked at the child's courage. The what? If the painting is fake, a forger might leave a mark. Something tiny. Julia gently angled the spotlight higher. The dark background behind the lady in the painting shimmered with uneven texture. Logan squinted, leaning closer. Max moved beside him, nose twitching, breath steady against the boy's leg. There, just above the woman's shoulder, something shaped like wings. Dragonfly, Logan whispered. Ethan exchanged a knowing look with Turner. Turner scribbled notes. All right. We need a list of every known art forger who uses an insect signature. Julia stood, nodding quickly. I'll cross-match museum alerts. Turner exhaled, the enormity of the situation settling like lead in his chest. A billionaire nearly murdered, inside a fortress of culture. A fake masterpiece turned weapon. And a criminal vanishing into the night like smoke. Max huffed once, low and certain. The real hunt had begun. The summer night outside the Fairmont auction hall tasted like heat baked into concrete. Police tape fluttered under flashing lights. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. But inside Detective Mark Turner's mind, there was only one sound echoing. A billionaire had nearly been killed tonight, and the predator who'd planned it was walking freely under the Chicago sky. Ethan Cole kept one steady hand on Max's collar as they waited near the ambulance where Michael Harris received oxygen. Max sat rigid, gaze fixed on the building as if every muscle was a compass needle pointing toward danger. The German shepherd's breathing was tense, nose still twitching with lingering traces of the drugged air. Nearby, Logan Miller wrapped his arms around himself. Fear pressed tight against his ribs, but his eyes remained bright with thought. His notebook clutched to his chest wasn't just paper anymore. It was a weapon of truth he hoped he could wield. Karen stood protectively behind him, her tired blue eyes scanning the chaos, ensuring her son stayed within arm's reach. Detective Turner approached them. The harsh lights emphasized the tired creases in his face, each line carved by memories he wished he could erase. We've checked security footage, he said, rubbing a hand over his jaw. Victor Hale left through a locked side door. Someone disabled the alarm seconds before the attack. He paused, letting his suspicions settle into the air. This was planned with inside help. Logan stepped closer, his voice small but steady. Victor looked at Mr. Harris like he already knew something terrible would happen. Turner nodded solemnly. He didn't underestimate children. They noticed truths adults missed while pretending everything was fine. Your instincts have been sharp tonight, Logan. Keep telling me what you notice. Logan blinked, surprised to be taken seriously. It steadied him. Before Turner could continue, a black SUV with emergency lights glided to a stop. A tall woman in a dark navy suit stepped out. Her presence commanded attention before she spoke a word. Special Agent Rebecca Ward, FBI Art Crime Team. She looked mid-30s, blonde hair cut in a severe bob, emerald eyes sharp and calculating. Her posture was military straight. Years at Quantico etched discipline into bone. Her voice carried authority as she flashed her badge. We're taking over the art crime angle. Harris is a high-value target with a global footprint. Fake Leonardo and assassination attempt? That's not petty theft. That's organized crime. Turner bristled slightly. He disliked being brushed aside, but he also respected the stakes. We can cooperate, he replied, his tone steady. My team is already processing the crime scene. Agent Ward nodded, stepping toward Ethan. You're Cole, right? Former Marine Special Recon? Ethan stiffened. That was a lifetime ago. And now you're Harris's security, Ward continued, assessing him like a puzzle piece. He's lucky to have you. Tonight proved that. Though complimented, Ethan's jaw only tightened. He hated praise when he hadn't prevented the threat, only minimized it. Failure still tasted bitter in his throat. What's the motive? He asked. Ward's gaze traveled to the auction hall doors. Money and power usually walk hand in hand wearing forged crowns. I suspect Harris upset the wrong investors. Some people want to own the world and destroy anyone who stands between them and the next fortune. Turner added, "Our forensics found a dispersal unit behind the frame. Whoever did this knew chemistry and art, a rare combination." Julia Price approached with a sealed evidence bag containing a small metal shard. "We recovered this from the device casing. Serial number filed off, but the metal composition suggests a prototype, something made in a specialized lab." Ward examined it briefly, then looked at Logan. "You recognized a forged technique, didn't you?" Logan nodded fast. "I saw flaws in the painting, and the dragonfly mark." Ward knelt to his height. "Dragonfly?" Logan opened his notebook, flipping to a sketch. A tiny insect hidden in shadow. "It's a signature some forgers use. It means pride and danger." Ward's eyes widened a fraction. She stood again. "Eric Hoffman, Nazi-era restorer turned master forger. His followers still operate his methods. There's a new player called the Collector. Rich, vindictive." Ethan glanced toward the skyline. "And he wants Harris gone." Max suddenly stood, nose pointed toward the alley beside the building. A low growl rumbled deep in his throat. Turner reacted immediately. "What is it, boy?" Logan whispered, "Someone's watching." A figure emerged just beyond the pools of flashing light, shadows clinging to him like a second skin. Tall, lean, wearing a dark jacket and baseball cap pulled low. His movements were controlled, deliberate. Agent Ward reached for her weapon. "Hands where I can see them." The figure's head snapped their direction, but instead of raising his hands, he ran. Turner cursed, sprinting after him. Ethan released Max with a sharp command. "Track!" The German shepherd shot forward like a bullet with fur. Logan reached out as if he wished he could go too, but Karen held him tight. "Stay here," she urged. "You've done enough tonight." But Logan shook his head, whispers fierce. "We haven't done anything yet. The killers are still here." Max barreled around the corner of the alley. Turner and Ethan chased close behind, hearts pounding against ribs. The figure darted between dumpsters, leapt a short fence, then disappeared into the labyrinth of Chicago's streets. Max reached the fence, barking, claws scraping metal, then stopped. Ethan arrived seconds later, breath ragged. Turner leaned against the fence, knuckles white. The bastard vanished. Max sniffed the fence, then the air, then looked up at Ethan with frustration burning in his amber eyes. Ethan placed a hand on his thick fur. "We'll get him next time." They returned to the lights, frustration and resolve wrapped tight around every heartbeat. Agent Ward crossed her arms. "Whoever that was knows we're close." Turner clenched his jaw. And tonight was just their opening act. Logan watched them return, his young face set in a new expression, determination. He looked at Max. Max looked back. Neither blinked. The night hadn't ended in victory. It had begun a war. Morning sunlight poured over Chicago, like a clean, warm promise that the night's darkness could never fully win. The sky above the downtown hospital was a flawless shade of blue, as if the world itself wanted to offer hope. Inside, the hallways smelled faintly of disinfectant and fresh coffee, signs of a new day trying to erase yesterday's terror. Michael Harris lay in a private hospital room with soft white walls and a slow, rhythmic beep that assured everyone he was still fighting. His silver hair was messy for once, his face pale, but the oxygen mask had been removed, and full awareness had returned to his sharp gray eyes. He looked smaller lying in bed like that, but something like gratitude softened his expression. Ethan Cole stood at the window, arms crossed over his broad chest, scanning the view below out of habit. His scarred cheek twitched each time footsteps echoed in the corridor, training that wouldn't release him from its grasp. Max sat loyally beside Michael's bed, head resting on the crisp sheets, amber eyes watching every breath the billionaire drew. The German shepherd's ears flicked once when Michael spoke, voice weathered but sincere. "You saved my life again, old friend." Max's tail brushed the side of the bed, not fully wagging, still alert, but grateful for the praise. Logan and Karen entered quietly behind Dr. Emily Carter, who carried a tablet with medical notes. Karen had put on her only good blouse, a soft lavender one, hoping she would look good enough for this moment, though her fingers nervously twisted the fabric near her waist. Logan clutched his ever-present notebook, eyes shining with a mixture of awe and anxious anticipation. "How are you feeling, Mr. Harris?" Logan asked carefully. Michael smiled faintly. "I've been better, but for someone who nearly got murdered by a painting, I'd say I'm doing great." Logan let out a small laugh, the first since the nightmare began. Karen squeezed his shoulder, relief warming her tired blue eyes. Detective Mark Turner stepped inside next, holding a stack of documents. He looked slightly more rested, but still wore the same rumpled suit, a man who would not sleep until justice was nailed down. With him was Special Agent Rebecca Ward, posture still straight as steel, though her eyes softened seeing Michael conscious. "Mr. Harris," Turner began, "we executed a raid early this morning." Ward finished the thought, her voice crisp. "We located Victor Hale trying to flee with forged passports, and we recovered several other forged paintings tied to a wider ring." Ethan turned, something rigid in his stance easing for the first time. "So it's over?" "Not over," Ward corrected. "But the man who tried to kill you won't be hurting anyone else again." Michael released a long breath, tension melting from his shoulders. Turner added, "We also uncovered encrypted correspondence referencing the collector. This wasn't just about money. Someone wanted control over art, over markets, over everything." Logan whispered, "Who could hate Mr. Harris that much?" Michael looked down, his voice quieter. "Someone who profits when others lose. My company has blocked some very dangerous deals." The room fell silent, acknowledging the shadows of power that lurked behind civilization's polished doors. But Max broke the stillness with a soft whine, nudging Logan gently, urging the boy to speak. There was more to say. Logan straightened, determination returning. "Mr. Harris, the art world needs someone who doesn't get fooled by money or beauty on the surface, someone who sees the truth underneath." His voice quavered, but his bravery did not. Michael stared at the boy, speechless for a heartbeat. Karen stepped in, voice soft but proud. "Logan has always seen the world a little differently. Sometimes that's a gift. Sometimes it scares people." Ethan nodded. "Gift saved a man's life." Agent Ward knelt briefly so she could meet Logan's gaze. "You helped break a case that spans continents. The FBI might want to borrow you someday." Logan's cheeks flushed bright pink. Michael cleared his throat, emotion thickening his words. "I want both of you, Logan and your mother, to come work with me. Karen, you'll manage my personal gallery, organize security, preservation, and staff. And Logan," he paused, smiling with genuine warmth, "you'll help Max protect art from lies." Logan blinked fast, processing. Work with Max?" One condition, Michael added, voice gentle. You stay in school, but your afternoons, they belong to the truth. Tears filled Karen's eyes, not sad tears, but the kind that tasted like freedom. Mr. Harris, Michael, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Ethan said, grinning for the first time anyone could remember. Max barked once, sharp and clear, as if casting the winning vote. Everyone laughed, tension finally breaking like a storm dissolving into sunlight. Julia Price, the forensic technician from the night before, stepped in holding a small box. She had dark circles under her eyes from working overnight, but smiled when she saw the group's relief. Thought you'd want to see this, she said. Inside the box lay a collar tag, engraved, Truth Sniffer, protecting art for the world. Max sniffed it, tail thumping now in earnest. Michael reached to clip the new tag onto the shepherd's collar. It clicked into place like destiny finding its hook. We're going to expose every forgery, Michael declared, and protect every masterpiece that still has a heartbeat. Logan lifted his chin. Because art is alive, he said, and lies can't stay hidden forever. The room filled with the brightness of something rare, believing the future could be better. Ethan stood tall beside Max. Karen wrapped an arm around Logan. Turner and Ward exchanged a nod, the kind that said they'd fight side by side if darkness returned. And Michael, stronger now, looked out the window, letting the sun paint his face with hope. A billionaire nearly died the night before, but a family was born instead. Their enemy tried to steal the truth. Instead, the truth gained guardians. Max let out one final bark of triumph. And for the first time in a long time, Michael laughed. In every masterpiece of life, there are hidden brushstrokes, moments of grace that we do not see until the light finds them. A loyal dog's warning, a child's courage, a stranger's kindness. Sometimes these are the quiet miracles God sends to remind us. Truth always finds a way to breathe again. Even in the darkest halls of power, where lies pretend to shine like gold, God places protectors, those with faithful hearts like Max, and eyes open to what others ignore like Logan. He reminds us that love still heals, justice still rises, and no evil plan can silence the purpose He has written for each of us. So tonight, may you hold close this simple, beautiful truth. You are never alone. You are always protected. And God still works miracles, often through the paws and hands of those who love us most. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder that hope is alive. Leave a comment about a time God used an animal or a friend to protect you. Subscribe so you never miss another inspiring tale of faith and courage. May the Lord bless you and your home with peace, protection, and the gentle company of angels, some with wings and some with wagging tails.